All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. This, of course, is an instant reaction variety. The Patriots went over to Germany and got smoked. Not even smoked, just embarrassed, really. Embarrassed themselves, I would say, against the Indianapolis Colts. It's your boy, Pat Lane. As always, my guy, Matt St. Jean. This episode, as always, is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. And again, maybe you can win some money. The Patriots aren't going to win any games, but maybe you can win some money at least. And you'd have that going for you. Matt, we have a song that we're going to, listen, let me tell you something. We just played in Germany. If you're between the ages of 30 and 40, you should know what's coming. But it's a fun song. I don't know. Have you heard the song before? Probably not. You're too young.
I don't know what song it is.
Okay, well, there you go. How about that? So, all right, let's play the song and then we'll get going. This one goes out to Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, and the rest of the New England Patriots. And I don't know. I let that thing play the whole time. But for those of you that don't know German, that means you hate me. And that's, how else can you explain what the Patriots are doing right now other than they just completely hate us?
Yeah, it's bad. Like, in some ways, like, I feel like we have a lot to talk about, but in other ways, I feel like we have very little to talk about because it's so bad that it's incredibly simple.
Right.
This team, they certainly hate holding on to the football and scoring points right now. It's bad.
Yeah, it's just, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen in my entire life. They couldn't do anything. And they were moving the ball offensively, running the ball. And then, you have some of those plays where, like, the third down play, and I understand Demario Douglas would have been hit if Mac throws him that ball across the middle on 3rd and 2. But, like, make a low throw. Just have him die. Have him slide on the ground and catch it. Like,
3 other guys open too,
Ramondra's wide open in the flat. It drives me crazy.
Well, like, the other part of that play is that, let's say that none of the receivers are open. Mac's process is still bad because he locks onto one receiver from the start and never comes off of it. And that's kind of the issue here. Is this is something that has been there since day one with Mac. A lot of the time, it seems like pre-snap, he picks one half of the field and will only read out what happens on that half of the field. Right. And it's continued through now. And that's always going to happen some of the time in the NFL with the way it works. But he shouldn't be doing it as much as he is because he misses so much backside. And think about some of the better games you've seen from Mac, too. You go back to the Ravens game early on last year. I know that he melted down at the end, but so many big plays in that game from when he did look to the backside of plays, and it was hitting Devontae Parker on the backside of stuff. It was making things happen, and that is just completely absent. And, I think,
you can't win with things. No, you can't. And really, what it comes down to for me is that I look at him, and he's supposed to win with his mind, right? Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. He's supposed to win with his mind. And he doesn't, and he hasn't, right? And we have two different timelines, in my opinion. And I said it the moment that they did it. Last year's Bears game, when they started Mac for no reason, just absolutely no reason, just a stupid, incredibly dumb move by Bill Belichick to start Mac Jones against the Bears last year on Monday Night Football. He's coming off an injury, clearly wasn't 100%. Bailey Zappe's been playing well. There was no reason to start Mac Jones. They started him anyways. He came out and looked like absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. And so they benched him, and they brought in Zappe, and Zappe immediately took them down the field. Now, listen, it was an easy pass to Ramondre Stevenson, and Jacoby Myers has been the most wide open I've ever seen a player ever, and Bailey Zappe still almost missed him, and Myers made an outrageous catch for a touchdown. And so it was like, oh my God, Zappe's incredible. It turns out by the end of the game, we all realized that Zappe actually sucks. But if you had just started Zappe from the beginning and he had looked like that in that game, you would have said, fine, no big deal. Zappe stinks. We're ready for Mac Jones to be back in again. But instead, you have Mac Jones in the first quarter, after the first drive, getting booed off the field, and they're chanting Zappe and cheering for Zappe to come in when Mac Jones is still on the field. I think that crushed his confidence. I think he's been a shell of himself since then, and he needs a complete reset. And I think honestly, at this point, we've seen enough of him. I think he's going to be a really good backup quarterback, but I don't think it's ever going to be anything more than that.
I mean, at this point, I hesitate to say he's going to be a backup quarterback anywhere. The way he looked today, I mean, because you can point back to that game, but some of the stuff to me goes back even before that. The turning point in my mind will always be the Colts game coming out of the bye his rookie year, and how the Colts played him differently than other teams, and he just looked shell shocked by it, and they just kind of never. They looked good the first 10, 11, 12 weeks of that season, whatever it was, came out of the bye, and we haven't seen that Patriots team since then. So I think it's that, and I think, I don't know, you can point to parts and do all the stuff you want, but also I think it's pretty clear you probably never would have been the guy. If things like this knock you off your path, then you're just not going to make it in the NFL. Life is always going to be difficult. There's always going to be challenges to overcome. Look at the situation Trevor Lawrence got dropped into as a rookie with Urban Meyer and an awful team around him, and he's obviously a more talented quarterback, but he's a better quarterback, and he's made it show. And Mac Jones looks like the fifth quarterback drafted in that class right now. I mean, the way Mac Jones looked today, it's reopening the question of who's better, Mac Jones or Zach Wilson.
Yeah, which is embarrassing. I mean, it does at that point. It doesn't even matter. Like it's not even worth arguing, right?
No.
So, and look, I think too, like the big thing for me, and the reason why I think he'll be a good backup quarterback is because what you saw after he got benched, for me, is exactly why he'll be a good backup quarterback, because you saw him get off the bench, high five everyone on the offense, say, "Hey, go out there and win it." You saw him give knuckles to, give a fist bump to Zappe as he goes in. Like he's supporting his teammates. He seems like a good teammate. Everyone on the field seems to like him. Everyone in the locker room seems to like him. He's a likable guy, and he works his ass off. And so, like, from that perspective, that's exactly the type of guy that you want to have in your locker room. But he's just not the type of guy you want as your starting quarterback, right? Like he's not good. He can't get the job done on the field. And so, like, you want that guy in your locker room. You just don't want him as your starter. And so I think he will be a good backup quarterback, a good journeyman backup quarterback. And it's funny, they played against Gardner Minshew. I think Minshew's a different type of player than Mac Jones is, but it's a similar situation where he's a guy that's, that's kind of a journeyman. You know what I mean? Yeah. And AJ, I know you may not think he's a likable guy. Everyone in the locker room seems to like him. So, like, maybe players around the league don't like him. So the locker room seems to like him a lot. So, like, and maybe they're just lying. I don't know, because he's the rookie, because he's the quarterback. But, like, I don't know.
Well, I think the frustrating part with this is that I think you were kind of hoping that Mac would retain some trade value and you could move on from him after the season and get something back now. And I mean, you're looking at like a conditional 6th or 7th at best at this point. And we can talk about what this means for the future. But if he's getting benched the rest of the way, I don't think he's got real trade value. I think you're just cutting him and cut bait at the end of the year. And I mean, really, you look at this quarterback room and you probably need 3 new bodies in it. I mean, are you bringing back a single person from this quarterback room for next year?
No. I mean, not unless
the only reason you're doing it is because they're cheap and you're going to have somebody take a spot, but you're not doing it because you like the players.
Right. Unless, Will Grier gets the start after the bye and lights it up and you're like, oh, okay, he could be our backup quarterback moving forward. But, that's the only situation. Or if you think Malik Cunningham advances a little bit and you want to try some things out with him or whatever.
But I'm not even sure if we're counting him in the quarterback room. Right now.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So, by the way, James is asking that he said he couldn't watch it live. Should he bother with the full game replay? No. No, you should not.
Well, and I think the frustrating thing, you look at the final score and what should end up being 10-6. Like, obviously not a lot of offense in this game.
Yeah.
But the crazy part is the Patriots actually like moved the ball.
They did,
at points. They had Patriots had 340 yards and what was really 9 drives. So we probably averaging over 40 yards a drive there.
Yeah.
I'm doing some quick mental math, and the running game got going, probably the best they've run the ball all season long. And they just, kept getting into decent territory and then couldn't execute. You got a missed kick. You got Max, the interception, the worst throw I've seen a New England quarterback throw in a long, long time. And 2 field goals in there. And one of those field goals, they threw it on a 3rd and 2 and couldn't do anything with it, and you get sacked. And there were, not only were their guys open, this is something that annoyed me. They are running the ball all drive long. And the Colts on 3rd and 2 or 3 or whatever it is, put 2 safeties back. It's a light box on 3rd and short. You've been running the ball the whole time.
Yeah.
Check into a run, and they didn't do it. And you try to throw into that, and it's just.
I also think too, like there were things that they like. I don't know if it was that. I'm trying to remember if it was that drive or another drive, but like it was one of those things where you like throw it on 2nd down. If you're gonna throw the ball, throw it on 2nd down and give yourself an opportunity. Now it's 3rd down. If you run it, I don't remember what play it was. Gesicki came across the formation and they ran it directly up the middle for 0 yards. And I think it actually might have been. I think it might have been that one where they took the sack, but Gesicki came across the formation and he was wide open in the flat, but they ran it instead. And it's like, dude, everyone's expecting a run. You've ran it the whole time. The whole team is expecting a run. Throw the ball. No one's expecting you're going to have someone wide open. On 3rd down, sure, you could still run it. But, I think most of the players are looking for a pass on 3rd down as opposed to a run. And so I just think like some of the decision making by the coaching staff stinks, and it's just, man, just bad plays all around.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we've been talking about just like they need to get so many plays right in a row.
Yeah,
there were no explosive plays, so the only way you were going to win this was by churning together or linking together a ton of decent plays, and they were able to do that enough to move the ball, but not enough to actually turn it into points, which has been literally the issue for this team since week 1.
Yeah,
and I thought the offensive line. Running the ball looked pretty good. I think this is the best they've looked there in a while, which I do think had to do a lot with the injuries the Colts have on their defensive line right now, but still good to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And they weren't good against the pass, but I think you saw today how like sacks aren't always an offensive line stat. Right. Not that they gave up some bad pressures in there, but Mac Jones is supposed to win with his mind. And there was one play the entire game where the Colts brought pressure, it got home, and Mac Jones stood in, won with his mind, and made a throw out of it. And that was that 3rd down to Demario Douglas, which was a big play. It was maybe one of their best plays of the game. Outside of that, though, it was just the second there was pressure, his eyes go down, he picks up the football, and he's just trying to run with it. Full panic mode immediately. Yeah. And you can't win with that with any quarterback, but especially not with him.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, on that Gesicki play, he panicked for no reason. He didn't even have someone in his face. There was someone coming. He probably was going to get hit if he stood in there. But like, if he stands in there, he makes the pass, they win the game. Like he throws touchdown pass and they win the game. As opposed to, him doing what he did, which is just like, what are you doing? And I'm telling you, you said that's the worst pass I've ever seen a Patriots player throw. That might be the worst pass I've ever seen on any level. Anyone throw. Gesicki's by him. He's the only guy in the end zone, and he throws it to the 2-yard line. It's just awful.
Yeah, just like awful. the only throw that actually comes to mind that could be in the conversation, and there's probably some Cam Newton ones that I've just completely flushed out of my memory in there. But the only one that comes close is like the 2004 Tom Brady one in Miami, where he's getting sacked and throwing the ball up. But that's less the throw and more the decision.
Right.
Yeah. This is just, that is one of the few throws I've seen in the NFL where I can genuinely say, if you put me out there, I could have thrown it better.
Right. But it's crazy. It's crazy to think of. And so, look, and as bad as Mac Jones was, this is one of the things for me, like, when you talk about the coaching and understanding the rules of the game and understanding the plays that need to be made in the game. And it's a small thing, but I don't want to nitpick too much, but at the same time, I feel like, it's an indication of what's going on in New England. There's a punt. Demario Douglas calls Peter. Everyone goes away, right? The gunner makes a really nice play and knocks the ball down at the 5-yard line. Now, the ball bounces pretty much right at Douglas's feet. If Douglas picks that ball up, he can run with it. Okay, and so this is a rule, and I don't know how many people know this rule, but the way the rule works is that once the kicking team touches the ball is dead. However,
it's technically like a violation to touch the ball there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, however, he can, like, the Patriots can pick the ball up and start running. If they pick up yards, the ball gets placed where they get tackled. If, for whatever happens, they fumble the ball, they lose the ball for whatever reason, the ball gets placed back or it was originally touched by the kicking team. So is that a big deal? No, it's not. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But that guy touches the ball at the 5-yard line. If Bob Douglas picks that up and picks up 10 yards, now instead of being at the 5, you're at the 15. And there's nothing. You lose absolutely nothing by picking that ball up. And that is just, it's something that, and it's not a big deal, right? It's not like, oh my God, but that's one of those things where the Patriots have always been the smartest team on the field. And they would take advantage of plays like that because they understand the rules of the game and they understand the ways to take advantage of those rules to be in their favor. And that's a situation where you look at it and just say, like, well, there's a perfect example of a rule that, frankly, not everybody knows.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're able to take advantage of that, it may only get 10 yards for you, may only get 15 yards for you, whatever the case may be, but that helps your team win. And they're not doing things like that right now.
Yeah. It's frustrating. And there's like, it's on the coaches, it's on the players, it's on everybody. And that's why, like, I think we've all known this for a little bit now, and it only gets more obvious every week. There's got to be a change in leadership for this team coming.
100%. Yeah.
I don't think it's Bill Belichick's fault that Demario Douglas isn't doing that, but it's his responsibility to make sure the guys are ready to go. And they just consistently have been missing on details for a little bit now. And that's, I have confidence that if Bill had unlimited lifespan and you gave him 10 more years, 5 more years to figure it out, it would look better. But that's not how this whole thing works. So,
right.
Well, we'll see what happens. I will say, I've seen a lot of complaining about the punt return thing and not having a guy back. After watching the offense today, I do think their odds of scoring were higher on a punt block than on whatever short possession they would have had. I really didn't hate that call, and I like being different and being aggressive, especially if you have something. It's just sometimes you get like the blocked field goal you get against Miami with Brendan Schooler. Sometimes that happens. It's a risk.
And they ran, by the way, they ran exactly the same play last week. I commended the Patriots for running the exact same play. When they brought the second gunner in to rush the punter, the kicking team responded by bringing their gunner in. So now Pop Douglas ran back, and Pop Douglas was able to be back there with only one gunner coming at him. And so it allowed him to get a 15 or 20-yard return. And so this week, instead of doing that, the Colts said, no, we don't think you're going to block the punt, so screw it. We won't put that guy there. And if that's the case, then, you look at it and say, like, all right, well, we're done. Like, what are you going to do? You can't put Demario Douglas back there to return and have just a gunner with a free release on him. He's going to get killed. And so I guess you could have had him, go back there and what's it called, and fair catch it. But at that point, it's kind of dumb, And you also can't leave that guy alone because they could just snap and throw it to him, right? So it is what it is.
Yeah. So I don't.
It's just it is. It's a horrible game. It's a terrible game, and it's disheartening, right? And even so Minshew's not good, right? Gardner Minshew's not a good player, but he's fun to watch. At least he's fun, right? I enjoy watching Gardner Minshew do this, and so I think that it's one of those things for me. Now, look, I think that the big conversation is what's going to happen next year, right? I think we had the conversation about Belichick. He's got to be gone. He's got to be gone. It's got to be new leadership. You can't. It's just we've gotten to this point where I don't know what we can do. Right now, is Marvin Harrison Jr. the guy? I don't know where. The problem is I'm not sure where they're gonna draft. Of course, right? No, we don't know where he's gonna draft. But I don't see how you
I
can
don't
draft
think Bill would have. Yeah, I don't think Bill would. If Bill was still around, I don't think he would object to drafting like a Marvin Harrison Jr. either.
right. But I think it depends on who's there. I'm sorry, I'm not taking Marvin Harrison Jr. over a quarterback. Now, if you want to tell me, and I made this comment on Twitter and people did not like it, but if you want to tell me that you're going to trade back from the number 1 overall pick up a first round pick in 2020, an extra first round pick in 2025, and get more out of it as well. Like, look what the Bears got. Now, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. Like, the Bears thought they had the quarterback in Justin Fields and whatever. They weren't sold on the guys this year and wanted a shot at the guys coming out next year. I understand that. But still, as someone who roots for the Patriots, like, I look at it and say, well, if you can get a first round pick in 2025 and a stud wide receiver like they got, in DJ Moore, and other picks as well, then that's something that I would explore.
I agree. And
otherwise,
yeah, if somebody wants to do something real stupid with a trade too, like if you're at 1 or you're at 2 or whatever, and there are multiple bidders for one of those spots, and you can drive the price up, you have to at least look into it. And I think a lot here too is going to be based on what happens in January, February, and March. Your prep work you do on these guys, and who is going to be making the calls on draft day, whoever that decision maker is. Because if you bring in a new GM, usually, GMs are usually tied to quarterbacks. When you draft a quarterback, your clock starts, and you're only there as long as he's good. And your job is to build a team around that quarterback. You got a new GM coming in, and it's scouts that he doesn't know, and they're not sure what they want to do at quarterback. That's a situation where, I can see the GM wanting to trade back, where it could be advantageous to trade back. If the leadership isn't going to be fully confident in whatever decision they're going to be making for a position that important, and somebody's willing to trade up to that spot, you have to listen to that offer minimum.
Right.
The other part of this, for as bad as the Patriots are, if they see one of those guys and they say, hey, this is a Trevor Lawrence level prospect, we think this guy is that good, then I think you're taking them. Because the other thing is, look at the Jaguars right now. They were awful. And now they're, probably going to be in the playoffs because they got a guy.
Yeah. Well, that's really what it comes down to is how good is the player, right? Is he a generational talent? Like, I understand they don't have a quarterback right now, but you're not taking a quarterback just because you need a quarterback or we need a number 1 QB, so we're drafting one. No. That's not what you're doing. That's what you did with Mac Jones. That's not what you're doing this year. Right. I understand you get a quarterback and you need a quarterback, obviously, to be competitive. And I think that you do have a really solid defense. But I do think, like, drafting an offensive tackle or drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. or something like that. Right. And then taking a shot at a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round. I get that. Now, here's the other part, right? The other part of it is this. Look at the Texans. Right, the Texans went all out this offseason. They drafted C.J. Stroud number 2. They traded their first-round draft pick next year to move up to number 3 and take Will Anderson. And they bet on themselves and their young coach. And now they're, like, pretty good. They're not going to win the AFC South, but they might make the playoffs. The way that they're playing right now, certainly the way C.J. Stroud is playing right now.
I think they're leading in Cincy right now, right?
Yeah. They are up 20-7 in Cincy right now. So, like, that's a team that is a solid team and could realistically be a playoff team right away. And so, look, if you have that guy and you feel like we have to get him, then you get him, right? And I don't really care what else is up there. So it's just going to be a question as to what is there. Now, listen, to Caleb Williams, Drake May, that those two guys seem like they could be generational players. I don't know for sure, but they seem like they could be. And if they are, and you have an opportunity to take one of those guys, then you have to do it. If you don't think that they are, then you don't.
Yeah, I think it's that simple. And because if you think they're that good, you're not trading back, because you don't know when you're going to be in a position to draft somebody like that without having to trade up.
Exactly.
But if you think they are not guys that you think you can build around, or at least, it's like I said before, the internal stuff. Does the GM feel like he can trust the scouts and their evaluations and for his system and everything like that? These are questions that remain to be answered.
Correct.
But it's clear they needed a different quarterback in there. If it isn't going to be somebody they draft, and it isn't going to be somebody they're taking on like day 2 or something like that, you need to sign anybody, a veteran, or make a trade for somebody. You need to do something because you can't. This right now looks like the worst quarterback room in the NFL. The only one I can think of that might be worse would be like the Giants, but even Tyrod Taylor is better than anybody the Patriots have right now, even though he's hurt.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. They got an awful quarterback group here.
But I also think too, like if you're the Patriots, you have to look at this. You have to look at this and say it's probably not going to be Bill Belichick making the decisions next year.
No.
Right. And so it's one of those things, right? And I'll tell you what, right now, I can't. I want so badly. There is nothing that I want more. And I'll tell you this right now. There is nothing that I want more than for Bill Belichick to get traded to LA and take the Chargers to a Super Bowl. That would literally make my life. It would make my life, right? And the reason why is very simple. Everyone wants to talk about Brady versus Belichick. And of course, Brady went into Tampa and dominated and won a Super Bowl, right? And played well even when he didn't win the Super Bowls, right? Bill has struggled without Brady, right? If he goes to LA and wins in LA, which by the way, I think is reasonable. I think that's reasonable because LA has a ridiculous amount of talent and their coaching staff is terrible. And so it's one of those things. And maybe Belichick will say, hey, look, man, I'm not still Wednesday's banner, apparently, according to Matt. But nevertheless, I'm in a situation where I don't care about this, right? I'm like, hey, whatever. If he wins in LA, all of those people that are saying Belichick's a fraud and Belichick sucks and it was all Brady and Belichick had nothing to do with it, shut the hell up. Because now you see what happens, right? And again, I'm not sitting here saying that it was all Belichick because it wasn't. But my opinion on that hasn't changed. In my opinion, they don't win 7. They don't win 6 without each other. They don't.
No.
Period. They don't. And anyone that thinks anything differently is stupid. And Bill will tell you, he's the first one to tell you, the players win. He doesn't win the games. He's the coach. The players win the games. You have to have good players. And he has failed at rebuilding the offense. He hasn't failed at rebuilding the defense. They've done a really good job of that. They have failed at rebuilding the offense. And that's 100%. That is 100% on Belichick, right? 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and discount the last 25 years and say, well, it just is what it is. And for all the people that are saying that they have a stacked team in LA, they do. Guess who else had a stacked team? Tampa turned the ball over 35 times and still won 7 games. I
definitely do not think LA has a stacked team. I think that roster's incredibly overrated. I don't even know if I think that defense is that good. I think they got a lot of stars.
That's what I mean. I think offensively they're stacked. Yeah.
They got Herbert, but their receivers are New England's, but slightly better. They just can't stretch the field.
Yeah. I suppose. I don't know. I want him so bad. I want him so bad to go somewhere else and be successful. That's all I want.
I think the funniest outcome for Bill is if he went and spent 4 years at Rutgers or something and won a college championship with them and then rode off into the sunset.
Yeah, hey, I'd be all right with that. I'd be okay with that too. Honestly, it doesn't even matter. I just want him to succeed somewhere else so that all the people taking everything from the last 25 years away from him can shut the hell up and move on to something else. That's all.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
So,
should we
anyways,
do our ad read here?
Yeah, let's do our ad read, and then we'll just get into some last things. We can't spend too long talking about this. This is just painful. So here we go. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. MA 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pre-game moneyline wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. GamblingHelpLineMA.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. Trevor Lawrence just had a Mac Jones play where he took someone down in the end zone after he'd already scored. The play ended up getting actually wiped off the board, but Ambry Thomas, I believe, recovered a fumble, returned it all the way back for a touchdown, and like he was 2 yards into the end zone, and Lawrence like dove at the back of his legs. And they were like, "What are you doing, dude?"
Yeah.
So
speaking of that AFC South, Houston's taking it to the Bengals right now. I don't know if this is necessarily the Jaguars' division to
good point.
lose
good
here.
Point.
We got interesting stuff happening down there, but just going back to the actual game today. I think one of the observations I had, and this is the same observation I had last week. Look at the cornerback rotation. Did you notice when it was Shaun Wade in there or when it was Jack Jones in there?
Not at all. And as a matter of fact, I think Shaun Wade made some really nice plays, certainly in the run game, or at least tackling wise. I thought he played pretty well today.
Yeah, which I think what that tells me right there is if we're looking at what coaches are staying for next year, I want to keep the secondary guys. I think they've done a very good job coaching.
I agree. Yeah, Mike Pellegrino, I think, is the corners coach, right? Like he's a guy I think should stay. Right. And so I think he's done a nice job. And not just that, but I also think that, he is Shaun Wade himself, I think, has really come a long way. I mean, he's a guy that was, just god awful when they first had him and couldn't cover anyone. And, it became a situation where he's playing pretty well now. So we'll see. And so, but I think too, like, you start looking at it and then asking the questions, right? Like, is Jay, because Low 23 just said, cut JC Jackson. We don't need him. I mean, like, supposedly the report was that JC Jackson didn't miss curfew. He just literally didn't show up at the hotel on Saturday before the game. So, like, that's one of those things too, where it's like, man, like, that's not good. That's really not good. So
I'm honestly surprised he's still on the team after that, given his play as well, and there's like no cost to cut him. I think that says a lot about they just need the bodies right now, but they also just signed that Alex Austin kid. So
that's true.
We got a bye week coming up here, and I'm very curious to see what happens coming out of it.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of changes. You have to think they go with a different quarterback. I hope that it's not Bailey Zappi, because I think Zappi stinks, and I'm just not excited to watch him play, to be completely honest with you. But whatever, fine.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It's not going to make any difference here. And I was firmly on that. At least let Mac play out the season until that last pick, which is again one of the worst throws we've ever seen. And you can't put him back out there after that. That's why he got benched. Like that's a throw so bad that you cannot trust him to execute even the most basic parts of an offense. And Bailey Zappi went in and threw a pick too, and was blaming the refs or whatever it was. Zappi's not good, but you can't have any faith in your offense whatsoever with that version of Mac Jones out there. You just can't do it. And you got to buy here. If you're gonna switch quarterbacks, this is the time to do it.
100%. And look, he had 5 incompletions, which is crazy to say. Like, Mac Jones had 5 incompletions, and it's one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Like, and he's been bad at times, but like, he was just, the decision making was so poor. The ball placement at times is like, what are you even looking at, man? And so, it's tough. And again, you get that situation. Now I've been saying I'm working on an article, but it is coming out during the bye week. about, how much they've invested into the offense, and it just hasn't worked. Everything they've done has been a disaster. They have tried. They've tried. In their defense, they've really tried. They've spent and spent and spent. They've traded a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick for wide receivers. They've drafted a wide receiver with the first-round pick. They've drafted a wide receiver with the second-round pick. They've drafted a wide receiver with, they've done a million different things. None of it has worked. They spent a ton of money on tight end, on wide receiver. They've spent, some money on offensive line. They've drafted a quarterback in the first round. They've done all of these things, and every single thing has failed. And so, it just, unfortunately, that's just where they're at right now, right? And it's talent evaluation. And I also, too, think not just talent evaluation, but what Belichick always excelled at was not asking guys to do things they weren't good at. He never asked them to do something they couldn't do. And I just feel like that's happening less and less now. That, the more I'm watching this team, the more they're asking guys to do things that they're just not that good at. And maybe you don't have a choice, but it's hard.
Well, I think it's the combination of things. I think they're not good at evaluating what these guys are good at, and then they're putting them in spots where they have to do things they're not good at.
Right.
And that's been an issue with the free agents they've picked up and their drafting and all that. And some of it is probably just bad luck, but at a certain point, you need new leadership in there to go for it. And Bill Belichick's the GOAT. This is going to be his final swan song in New England. Even if regardless of how you feel about it too, I think it's pretty clear from just the crafts and their attitudes right now. I mean, it seemed like the attitude before the season was playoffs or bust here. And I'm sure if there could have been some wiggle room on that, depending on how things happened. But this team is, if they play like this every week, they're going to have a real shot at the number 1 overall pick. That's true. And if that's where you are, it's hard to keep any coach under those circumstances. Also, I would mention how the Texans were taking it to the Bengals. Yep. The Bengals have scored 10 quick points since I said that, and it's now a 3-point game. So
64-yard touchdown to Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow.
I would love a Jamar Chase.
Well, and you know what, though? That play is created by Joe Burrow extending plays, rolling to his left, and then throwing the ball 40 yards downfield to Jamar Chase.
If that's Mac Jones back there, he's either turtling in for a sack or 100%. Throwing it across the field for a pick.
Clearly throwing an interception 100%. It's never happening. So, it's tough. It's hard, and I was talking to my dad. So my dad was at the game, and as I said, I've said it on the podcast before, but they are over there. They went to the game. They had a lot of fun. Luckily, they turned it into a whole 2-week-long trip. So their whole trip wasn't just based around the game, thank God. But it is. They had fun. The game sucked, but they had a lot of fun when they were there, and it was cool to be in the atmosphere and how, the German fans are just fans of football. You know what I mean? So, but it's it was fun, at least to be over there, I'm sure. And that's even Matt Slater said, we had a lot of fun in Germany until the game started. It's just
the environment looked incredible too. I hope they get a chance to go back there with a better team,
right?
At some point,
I agree.
That would be nice. That's the other thing too. We talk about even in this game, the Patriots able to move the ball and do some stuff in this game. It wasn't all bad. They actually had real chances to win this game. And then you look at what the Colts are and how bad that team is. And it's they're a bad defense. They're 29th in points allowed. And that they were down 2 defensive linemen, I think, from most of the game today, 2 of their best players. And that's all you could do on offense. And the Colts offense has actually been, pretty good this year. They've scored on people. So credit to the defense for holding them. But, a lot of that felt like Gardner Minshew missing more than anything else. And I think it says I looked at the 3 biggest plays by expected points added in this game were the Mac Jones interception, the Gardner Minshew interception to Miles Bryant, which was very nice to see, and the Chad Ryland missed kick. And that feels about how the game went. The 3 biggest mistakes were the things that determined the outcome the most, and Patriots had 2 of them.
Right. And here's the thing with Ryland, right? It was a bad play. It was a bad play by Ryland. Obviously, you can't miss a field goal from that close, clearly. But, then I see people on we'll just keep Nick Folk and draft someone else in the foot. That's dude, would you stop? Chad Ryland's been pretty good this year. He's been Hasn't been amazing, but he's been pretty good. And I think good enough, at least, that we can look back at that pick and say, all right, seems like they got someone here. Bryce Behringer didn't have the best day punting. I know he kicked a lot of, he kicked some balls deep, but like, well, a lot of them were touchbacks, so like it doesn't really matter that he kicked them super far. They went into the end zone. So, it is what it is. And I think ultimately I don't mind both those picks because it seems like those guys are going to be players that you can depend on in the future.
Well, and I also think, it was one of those where you kind of knew you had to move on. Nick Folk is old and was struggling to kick in the elements, was struggling to kick anything with distance. And, in New England, you need to be able to do both of those things. And the punting situation was awful. We knew they needed new guys at both of those. They drafted the second best kicker, really only because the best kicker was a guy who went in the third round, and San Francisco went way up to get him. They drafted a punter they were comfortable with. It was time to move on, and I think by draft evaluation, those were the right moves. It might not work out, but Mike Reese had an article before the season talking about how the last time a team had a rookie kicker and a rookie punter at the same time, I think was 2001 Raiders with, I think it was Leckler and Janikowski. I'm stretching my memory here, but that was a team that, struggled a bit on special teams. Rookie special teamers always struggle a little bit. And I think it was probably reasonable to expect that having a rookie kicker, there's probably going to be a game where he either costs you it or he puts you in a worse spot than you would have liked, which I think is where this one falls for you. And you have to play through those. And we'll see how Ryland bounces back here. I think he's been a little bit disappointing relative to expectations, but also, nothing crazy, I think, about the norm for a rookie kicker. And we're going to see what happens next year.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, look, I mean, we can criticize everything they did, but, it is what it is at a certain point. I will say on the positive side, I do think that, we saw Juwan Bentley play significantly better last year and then continue to play well this year. And Juwan Bentley, of course, is out. But now to see Jelani Tavai playing well in his spot as well, I thought was encouraging. Jelani Tavai is a guy that, really was only, was just a run-stuffing guy. And he played extremely well in the pass today, I thought. He obviously had that tip pass that ended up being the Miles Bryant interception. He's looked consistently better over and over and over again every week. And so, I feel the same way. And Matt, of course, points out that why isn't Mapu playing linebacker alongside Tavai? He should be. I thought Mac Wilson actually played okay today.
But he got hurt.
Well, right. So I don't understand why they refuse to put Mapu at linebacker, but
I think at this point it's kind of tough to play him there because he's obviously slimmed down. Obviously, it seems like they asked him to lose weight and play more in the secondary, and you can't flip that switch in a bye week and convert him back to a full-time linebacker right now. I don't think you could just play him more there and understand that there's going to be some struggles that come with it. I've said on here, I personally don't hate the Mapu at safety thing because I liked his instincts there, and I think safety is a little bit easier for a rookie than linebacker. But before the season, I think it was better to pick one of them for now. Before the season, I would have picked linebacker because I did think his instincts were a little bit stronger there. Right? I didn't hate the move. I was thinking about this, by the way, last night, and I think one of the things that's gone underrated in New England, the team, at least like in my memory, hasn't really had bad linebackers. They got Bentley and Tavai now. They had Hightower. They had Jamie Collins. They had Gerard Mayo. They had Teddy Bruschi. They got this whole long line of guys, and even guys like a Landon Roberts in there, and Ted Johnson was a beast back in the day. A lot of guys at linebacker who've been very good, and that's a spot that's hard to evaluate, and you see teams really struggle to get good linebackers in, and that's a spot where the Patriots have always been good, and I don't think we talk about that much.
Yeah, and Kyle Van Noy, and look, I think one of the guys. Keep talking about linebackers, I guess. One of the guys on the negative side for me is, Texans just scored another touchdown. One of the guys on the negative side for me is Josh Uche. has been invisible. Casper the Ghost out there, he's done nothing. And it's not like he's getting double and triple teamed. He's going one-on-one against guys and can't win. And that's, I'm looking at that saying like, all right, he was supposed to get a big contract at the end of the season. I can't imagine he gets anything because he can't play the run, can't do it, can't play the run. And so, what does he bring if he's not rushing the passer? And when you have Matthew Judon on the other side and everyone's focused on Judon on one side, well, sure, it's a little bit easier to get after the passer in that situation. When he's your number one pass rusher, you're in big trouble.
Well, I think you're at a point right now where you're not asking how much, like, can we afford to re-sign him? It's do we want to re-sign him?
Right.
And I think you probably still do, but that price tag is going to come down. And let me tell you, they made the decision, it seems like, not to extend any of the big names this past offseason. And a lot's been made about that. But I think it was pretty clear going in, Josh Uche coming off one good season. He probably felt like if I get one more good season, I can drive this price up. He didn't feel the need to sign then unless it was going to be for a higher amount of money. And Duggar was kind of in a similar spot. A guy who's played well but hasn't had the accolades, thinking, all right, if I can get a Pro Bowl under my belt this season, I can bump that up. And Onwenu, who has kind of bounced around the line, played guard and tackle, not necessarily having a home, it made sense for all three of those guys to say, hey, I want to wait. And, right now, Duggar and Uche look like guys who probably going to be coming in for less money than we would have expected then, which, is not good in terms of, we thought those guys were going to be better players. But, I think you can return all three of those guys and still have plenty of cap space to play with this offseason if you want all three back.
Yeah. So I talked about this a little bit, but I did tweet this out, and this person's over here talking about one of the worst tweets I've seen in a while. I said if the Patriots get the number one pick, they should consider trading it and drafting an offensive tackle or someone else other than a wide receiver, other than a quarterback. I'm sorry. And people have gone nuts, ballistic. People, you're such an idiot. You're brain dead. I got someone tell me I have Down syndrome, which is cool. That's cool. So muted that dummy. But and then don't go to unfold you last year or whatever, right? So whatever. I get it, right? The Texans right now. We're talking about the Texans. The Texans right now got the quarterback. Wow, they look great. But people are acting like the Detroit Lions don't exist. The Detroit Lions are a team. People know Detroit Lions are a team, right? Do they know that?
Look at the whole NFC. There isn't a single NFC contender that picked their own quarterback, in the first round.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't take the number one guy. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I understand that. And thank you, Sasha, for being appropriate and not being rude about it. But the thing for me is that I get it. They have a ton of holes. Drafting a quarterback number one overall doesn't fix all of those holes. Now, if you think he's a generational talent, then you have to take him off a choice. You got to take him, right? And maybe that's the case, right? But I don't think it's crazy to say draft an offensive lineman, draft Penny Sewell, draft, whatever, right? Draft one of those guys. And now you're able to build your team through the trenches. Now you have a great offensive line. Well, with a great offensive line, you don't need a great quarterback. Oh, and by the way, they hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown in the fourth round. And by the way, they let Kenny Golladay walk, and they brought in other pieces to work. They traded TJ Hawkinson away, and they were better without TJ Hawkinson. It's crazy what they've done, and they've built this team. You know what I mean? And so look, and again, I'm not saying that the Patriots are going to be the Detroit Lions. I'm just saying there are different ways to do it, and they need a million different pieces. They have this offense. We've talked about it ad nauseum here. This offense has 4 pieces that you're okay, we're good. 4,
maybe.
That's what I mean. So you need 7 or 8 guys on offense to be competitive.
Yeah, they're far away, and that's why I looked up. We're 165 days away from the draft. We don't need to be making decisions now.
Right.
Drake May is going to play more games. Caleb Williams is going to play more games. All these prospects are going to play more games. They're going to get scouted. They're going to go through a whole process. I think it's foolish to say at this point that you're locked into any decision where the Patriots are going to pick, because there's a lot more to learn, a lot more work to do on these guys, a lot more work to do in the Patriots building about what's going to happen here. I think you have to have your options open, at least at this point in the process. And if one of these guys really does distinguish himself, and we feel confident that this is the guy, then yeah, you'd be foolish, I think, to pass that up. Outside of that, everything should be on the table to at least a reasonable degree.
For sure. Yeah. Also, Team 617 made with the quote of the day that never thought I'd see the day when someone would say, look, I'm not saying the Patriots would be the Detroit Lions. I mean, hey,
we're like 13 months removed away from the Lions still being a joke, too. I mean,
that's wild.
That's how fast it turns. And that's also, remember that. Things feel really bad for the Patriots right now, and this is a bad team. You can rebuild in 2 years in the NFL if you hit all the things at the right time.
And this is the thing.
Every year.
Yep. And you got a ton of cap space. You already have a good defense. Now you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to re-sign Judon. You're going to have to do some things. But Christian Gonzalez has come back next year. I think they're going to re-sign Barmore, though Barmore's not technically a free agent after this year. He's a free agent after next year. But still, I think you lock Barmore up. And so, like, I think that you're not as far away as it appears if you can get some good offensive players. And right now, they have no offensive talent. So you have to bring in some offensive talent. I think if you can re-sign KB and you keep Bob Douglas here, now you're looking at it saying, okay, we got a good, like, 3-4 maybe, and we got to bring in some other pieces. We really need a number one guy. And so, look, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but I do think your defense is still good enough that you can theoretically be competitive next year if you can build an offense that at least can do something. Yeah. So we'll see. And Ashton's asking about Jaden Daniels, and I think that, he's an interesting guy. He's an interesting player. He's a fun player. I don't know how good he's going to be in the NFL, but he's definitely a fun player. And I do think Jaden Daniels is a great example of, if you get the number one pick and you trade back from the number one pick and draft an offensive lineman, you might be able to draft Jaden Daniels at the top of the second round, right? Or you have pick 33 and you move 33 and something else and move up to pick 31 or 32, so you draft a quarterback. You know what I mean? So I just think that there are other options than just taking one of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, we'll see where we get, but I think there are at least a couple day two quarterbacks who, you think can step in and probably play better than what we've seen from Mac Jones the last month or two here. So at least, compete at that level. So we'll see. I don't know where Jaden Daniels is going to end up in the draft too. That's the thing. These quarterbacks, we're still figuring this out. Right. And it's hard to tell exactly where some of these guys are going to go. J.J. McCarthy is a guy who has gotten first-round buzz. Jaden Daniels is a guy who I bet will get first-round buzz after what we've seen from him. Michael Penix is a guy who I don't think is going to get first-round buzz, but you never know. Right. Bo Nix is going to be in this conversation. Shadur Sanders, who I don't think is going to end up coming out this year, is, I think if he gets first-round buzz, he'd at least consider it. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot of time, and I got to get more into the Jaden Daniels tape. Second round, I think, I'm in on him. Third round, absolutely. First, it's going to depend on where you are in the first. See how I feel about that. Yeah, man, it's November 12th, man. We're talking draft. That's brutal.
It's bad. It's really bad, right? But I mean, this is where we're at right now. Unfortunately, that's the situation that we're in right now, and the Patriots just aren't good, and so. What do we have to look forward to? We have the draft to look forward to. We have having probably a top 5 pick to look forward to is what we have, unfortunately. And so, it is what it is. And I think, and Ed's not wrong about, it is 5 straight years of decline for the Patriots. And I do think the big thing comes down to the draft. You haven't hit on these players. You haven't. And, that's what it comes down to. And I think you have to take a hard look at, because here's the thing, right? I would say the scouting department, right? But I don't how much of it is the scouting department? How much is Belichick listening to the scouting department? How many of the guys are saying, no, this is the guy you need to draft, right? No, this is the guy. I don't know. I'm not sure, right? And of course, there's no way to know. No one's going to say anything, but how many times is it oh God, I hope we don't draft this guy, and they end up drafting that guy? I have no idea, right? Of course, no one's going to tell you that.
I suspect it isn't. It isn't. Like my guess is that everybody's aligned on this stuff behind the scenes, and it's just not working. That's usually what happens. It's like these guys are all trying their hardest, and they're figuring it out, and they're trying to work together, and it's just not working. So I don't know. We'll see. And I think the key part is you just can't miss on the next draft. Like you don't have to come away with the best player, but you can't. If you're going to be picking top 5, you can't completely whiff. You probably gotta have 3 or 4 good players come out of your next class.
Right.
And that's what's going to be judged by. It's not just going to be your first rounder. And we mentioned the Lions on here. One of the things we had talked about on our Wednesday episode was that the Lions in 2021, when they were resetting, they go offensive tackle in the first, then defensive end, defensive tackle, and then wide receiver. And you get a really good tackle at Sewell, 2 guys in that front 7 who've been very good for them this year, and a wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is a Pro Bowl level receiver who they managed to get on day 3. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of Patriots are going to need to hit on something like that. It doesn't have to be a wide receiver, but if you get a tight end in round 4 who can turn into something for you, or if you're able to use a 3rd round pick on a guy who can be a center for you, who's like a starting caliber center for a long time, things like that. A guard, a tackle. It's actually funny. I was going back and looking at some of the old Patriots offensive lines to see how they were constructed, and it's shocking how many guys they had in there who weren't first round picks, who they made work at tackle. And that is kind of an anomaly here. That doesn't typically happen, but if you can make it happen again, if the Patriots can find a way to get a starting caliber tackle on day 2 or 3, that helps you out a ton.
Oh yeah, and I think too, I think you got Mike something. I think you got something with Mike Onwenu, where he's a good enough right tackle for you. I think at least, and I think you drafted City So to play right tackle, and you figured Mike Onwenu would stay at right guard. And now you might be in a situation where City So stays at right guard and Onwenu stays at right tackle, right? I don't know, but that's what I would think. And so, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think that's kind of, you almost kind of have to stick with Onwenu at right tackle, just so you have some consistency. Like, I know you got to sign him, but you have to stick with some consistency. And Ed's asking, are the Kraft's good owners? That's just a stupid question in my opinion. Like, I'm sorry, Ed, it's a dumb question. The Krafts are great owners. They've walked away. Listen, he's been hands off. Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. They won 6 Super Bowls, went to 9 Super Bowls. Like, at a certain point, you say,
18-year span where they were in half of them.
Correct. You just at a certain point, you have to sit there and say, well, we have to trust this guy to build the future. And it didn't work in year 1. Oh, fire Belichick. Well, no. Well, it didn't work in year 2. Fire. No. Let's give it some time. Now, if this offseason they don't do anything and they don't make any moves, now we can start the conversation. But let's just Bill Belichick has earned the fact that they're not the best team in the league anymore, right? But now they've gotten to the point where they're not good enough and things aren't good enough, and now we can sit there and say, okay, it's not good enough. Bill needs to go.
Well, right? I think that's the reason. Well, the Kraft's the good owners thing. Let's look past the Belichick situation entirely for a second. They bring in Parcells, which was a good move, and Pete Carroll, who I think hindsight says that was actually probably a pretty good move. It's just Pete Carroll wasn't ready yet. He's turned into a fantastic coach here. It just didn't match, but he wasn't like an awful coach or anything. Even though he didn't have the best time in New England, they built a new stadium and take you from an awful one to one that was state of the art and renovate it and built that whole plaza around Gillette Stadium. They've been very good owners. Bill Belichick has been the greatest coach of all time. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. And these things never last forever, and things change over time. So,
right.
It
just is what it is, and
Yeah, and the other Ed in the chat says arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It does kind of feel like, it feels like today is when the bow just hit the water on the Titanic sinking, and it's all right. We're really going down now, and we can do what we want. But this is is where we are. Like there's nothing changing. There's nothing salvaging this season at this point.
Right.
The season's basically done. We're gonna get 7 more games. Is that how many are left?
Yeah. Yes, 7 more games. Yeah. And look, AJ is saying we can't say anything bad about the Crafts. We can absolutely say bad things about the Crafts. The Crafts don't pay us. We're not under contract by the Patriots.
Yeah.
I could say whatever the hell I want about him. But here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? Here's what I'm going to tell you. He didn't start caring about profits over winning. They spent more guaranteed money than anyone else in NFL history during the offseason in 2021. That's a fact. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. And so those things haven't worked out. Like they've signed guys and they've all backloaded the contracts and incentives.
That's actually not true that they were backloaded.
Money.
It's they give huge signing bonuses on a lot of that stuff.
Guaranteed means guaranteed, like
upfront money. Yeah,
and people listen to Felger too much. It's just
not just that. We're like not even a year removed from the Crafts themselves kind of getting involved and saying, "Hey, we need to hire different coaches because we're not winning enough."
Right.
Or them investing huge amounts of money into the building itself to make it a better experience. Also, the idea that like profits and winning are tied. Yeah, how many bad teams rake in tons and tons of money? If you win, that brings you the money. Like that's one of the best things you can do, right? Is to regularly put yourself in front of TV audiences and to have good players and have people want to come to your games. Like it's ridiculous to act like those things aren't tied.
Correct.
So yeah, no, and we're not paid. Like I don't think the Crafts are perfect. I'm more than willing to criticize the Crafts. This franchise has 11 Super Bowl appearances, and 10 of them have been with the Crafts.
Right.
And they've this is, we're looking at the single most successful, amount of, single most successful franchise in NFL history right now, with almost all of it happening under these owners.
Yes. And Ron Ashton's saying he doesn't spend money on great players. You're right. And unfortunately, that's nothing to do with him.
The Kraft's not the one deciding where the money goes. That's all Belichick. And Belichick did pay great players. He underpaid Tom Brady relative to his value. They still gave Tom Brady tons of money throughout that span. It's not like he was making a vet minimum. They paid Gronk. They paid McCourty. They paid Darrelle Revis to come in. They have paid stars
to come. They paid a ton of guys.
They've paid guys in free agency.
Right.
The last round of doing that didn't work.
Now, here's the argument that I think that Jonathan Kraft is a little bit more.
No, Kraft does not decide how much Bill can spend. The NFL salary cap decides how much Bill can spend. That's correct.
But I also think that, and by the way, he said at the owners' meeting, money's not an issue. The checkbook's open.
Yeah.
He said it. Now you could, it's just talk and whatever. But look, it is what it is. And people are pissed about it. Is that, people are pissed that they're not spending the money, they're not paying people, they're not doing this, and they're not doing that, and they're not whatever. And I understand, things snowball, the team's not good. If the team were winning, nobody would care. No one would say one thing. Not one thing. 0 things would be said about how much money they spend if they were winning.
It would be complimentary articles.
It's the way it goes, right? And so, unfortunately, that's the way it happens. But they're not winning right now, and they did spend money on the wrong players. And so it's the way it goes, right? Is that they've spent money on players that didn't work. They have, right? Now, this past offseason, did they spend a ton of money in free agency? No, not necessarily. But they did re-sign Devontae Parker. They did go out and sign Juju Smith-Schuster. They did, they did some of these things. Now, Devontae Parker stinks. Juju Smith-Schuster stinks. But that's not on Bill. That's not on Bob Kraft. What do you want Kraft to do? He's spending the money.
They're all. I can. These guys are professionals. They're all trying as hard as they can to make this team good, and I'm sure they're all very disappointed that things have gotten where they are, and they just misevaluated on guys. This is the way it happens. They're not. Correct. They're not. The team didn't get banned because of some moral failing of the people involved. It's just very difficult to win in the NFL.
Right. And by the way, AJ, I appreciate that you think we're a big enough podcast that Bob Kraft will somehow hear what we have to say. He won't. So we can say whatever the hell we want. It doesn't matter. He's never going to.
Yeah, I would be shocked. Yeah, if Bob Kraft knows my name,
so right,
something.
Right. It's just like, come on, So, but
We're
no,
two fans talking about this.
I get it. I understand, but it's one of those situations that that's the way it goes. And you know what? He's 29th in cash spending since Brady. Take a look at it what it was when they had Brady. I bet you it wasn't much higher when they had Brady. And cash spending is irrelevant. It means nothing. Who cares? Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's just it's irrelevant.
Looks like we end on a high note? Yeah, can we end on a high note?
Do it.
A positive observation from today. Running backs look back. Ramondre Stevenson and Zeke Elliott both looked very good today. And if we're looking for guys to keep around, Zeke is a guy who I think I'm interested in keeping in the building. I think he has a really nice balance there with Ramondre. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional. I think he's a veteran you'd like to have in that room. And I think I want him back. And these guys play like that, it's going to help you.
Well, that's the thing. And Mondre especially, like, I don't know how much Mondre is going to command in the open market. And so maybe they won't. But I do think that they bring Mondre back. I think you're right about Zeke. Because Zeke's not really going to get a ton of money anywhere else. Like, he's really not.
I mean, he did look really good today. So there's a chance somebody wants to pay him. Like, he's a top.
That's true. I suppose.
I don't think. I think he'll probably get a raise next year and come back. It's what I would like. Right. And we also, By the way, we have Doug Kyde put out the skill position snap counts. If you want me to go through that, Tyquan Thornton 0.
Yep.
Jalen Reagor.
That's correct.
1.
Yep, that's correct.
Ty Montgomery had 1, and that was on the play when Ramondre was getting looked at, and Zeke said he needed he needed a breather.
Yep.
And then Zeke did 23, Ramondre 46, Kayshon Boutte 26, Mario Douglas 50, Juju Smith-Schuster 68. By the way, I thought Juju looked kind of fine. I think Juju looks much better in the role they have him in. I don't think he's great. I don't think you want to build around him, but think he can be a serviceable NFL backup in what they're asking him to do right now if he has to be on the roster next year. Hunter Henry 50, Mike Gesicki 46, Farrah Brown 33.
Yeah. And Gesicki I thought played okay, but he should have had a touchdown. Like, that's
would have been the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah, it's I don't know, whatever. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating watching this team play. And you just, man, it sucks, Yeah.
Oh, and somebody said in there, asked if Mondre is a free agent. Not until after next season. He's back.
Yes.
And somebody in the comments saying, why can't you guys just say we need a new GM, a new scouting department? I don't know if you just tuned in because we've been saying that for weeks and throughout most of this episode as well.
Listen, full disclosure. Okay. I have a friend who works on the scouting department for the Patriots. So no, I'm not going to call for his job. I'm not going to do it. Right?
This is everybody but him.
I'm not going to do that. Okay. And I also don't know. And again, I will again say, I don't know how much Belichick is listening to them. I really don't. I don't. Right. And I just don't know. He's the guy that has the decision making. They can go out and they do all of that stuff. Then they come in and they say, this is who we think should be the guy, Bill, and Bill drafts whoever he wants. Right. Mm-hmm. I can tell you right now. I can tell you for a fact that the Dominique Easley pick was not well liked by the scouts. They didn't get a choice on that, right? So, like, it is. By the way, CJ Stroud just threw a pick. Cincinnati's in the red zone with 3.5 minutes left down 10. Inside the 10-yard line. So, but anyways, look, it is what it is. And I just, so I don't know. Yes, does there need to be new decision making there? Absolutely. Do they need to rethink what they're looking at? Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. You've never heard of the guy? No, because I haven't mentioned his name. I'm not going to give you his name. But do they need to rethink their decision making? 100%. How much of that's on Bill Belichick and how much of that's on the scouts? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I think they need a reevaluation of the process.
100%. Yep,
and it's going to need at least some new people in there, and probably starting at the top. And even if we don't want that to happen, then I think it's still going to. It's pretty clear the Crafts want to win and are not happy with how things went this season and are going to change things up after this, regardless of any of our opinions. So,
Easley is who I was talking about. Then Dominic Easley, who they drafted in the first round, who was just a complete bust. Who again Bill took because they never had the interior pass rush was what they is what they look at it, and and that's the way it goes. It should have hired Chris Sims.
No.
For the love of God, no. Listen, he may have had CJ Stroud over Bryce Young, but that's about the only thing he's gotten right in the last 15 years. So I think I'll pass on Chris Sims.
Yeah. All right, I think that's all we have for this one, right?
That's it. That's all we got. We're just rambling at this point.
We got Giants game in 2 weeks. I know Tyrod Taylor's hurt for that game, but if he's, can we get him back healthy and can he play all-time QB? Like, can he just be? He be quarterback for both sides?
Let me tell you something. It is going to take an insane. I mean, you're going to be able to go to Matt. If you want to go to that game, you're going to be able to go to that game for about $4 because it's going to be Tommy DeVito versus probably Bailey Zappi.
Or Will Greer.
In their right mind is ever going to want to see that game? Why would you ever want to see that game?
What's crazy is the Patriots are probably going to start somebody not named Mac Jones the rest of the way here. One of their backup quarterbacks. They're going to bench the starter, and there's actually going to be at least one game the rest of the way where they won't have the worst quarterback in it, and that's in 2 weeks. The ticket prices right now on SeatGeek are $73 to get in.
Oh my God, that's insanity! Who is going to pay $73?
It's New York City. Everybody who bought those tickets
I guess that's true.
For over $100, so they're trying to get something back for them.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So, but Joe Mixon rushing touchdown. So the Texans are up by 3 with 3 minutes left to go. So. Yeah. Anyways, that's that. So, so there we go. Hey, man, it was ugly. It was really bad. I mean, there's just nothing. There's no way. There's no positive spin. Zero. There's nothing positive you can say about this game. Again, a few bright spots. Jelani Tobias, that was a bright spot. Christian Barmore played decent. Again, not as well as he has, but decent. Damari Douglas played pretty well, I thought. But
the rest of this team we're getting weekend at Bernie's.
That's correct.
Of the way. Like,
and
the
I
team
think
is
too,
dead. They're just getting propped up for another 2 months.
Yep, and I think keep playing Kayshon Boutte, keep playing Damari Douglas.
I forgot he played.
Keep playing those guys. Keep playing them, and just see what happens.
Yeah, and I also one other note because we didn't mention on the Wednesday show, and we should have. Adrian Clem dealing with health issues. I think we just want to wish him the best for whatever is going on there. Based on the comments, it sounded like he really got something going on.
You're not stepping away from the team if it's not something at least decently serious.
Yeah. So I'm hoping he's doing okay. He can get back at some point here and get back to full health. So
agreed.
That's
Yep. Good way to put it. So it's a good way to end the show. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll be back this week. I got a super busy week at school. But I think we'll probably do something Wednesday night. So. All right. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Thanks for the chat for being there and being with us.
Hanging
and
in
we
there.
Appreciate and hey, listen, man, we're going to keep bringing you content and we appreciate you guys keep coming through. I know it's been a tough season, but here we are, and we're going to start talking about, the draft and we're going to start talking about all those things. So we'll have some fun with it. We'll have some fun with it as we go. And we will be giving away something this week. So that's exciting.
Wednesday.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Giveaway. Which, by the way, Matt Manitto, we said we didn't have an answer for a question, and Matt Manitto did answer it at some point, and I missed it. So, Matt, you have an extra entry.
It's like the NBA lottery where Matt Manitto has the first round pick. So,
he's like the Thunder with all the draft picks right now.
Doesn't mean he's gonna get it, but he does have the best chance of winning for sure. So, yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you later on this week.